It's time for the Onyx News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the Onyx News Podcast, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Margie K, and this is Onyx News. We're here every Friday at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I'm sorry, we are a few minutes late because of some technical difficulties, and we are under high winds and tornado warnings here in Kansas City. So if I disappear, you'll know why. Want to just mention a couple of things before we get started with the show this evening. Mark your calendar for XCon 2023 in October. It's in Blue Springs, Missouri, and we have got a great lineup for you with some really good speakers. We're talking about Paracon, Oz UFO Con, and CryptidCon all in one weekend. So be sure to check that out and mark your calendar now so you don't miss anything. My guest this evening is Tyler Kiwala. He's an experiencer, independent researcher, and passionate disclosure activist, most popularly known in the awakening community for Journey to Truth podcast, hosted by himself and fellow disclosure activist Aaron Kuhn. Together, they have created a platform discussing any and all controversial and eye-opening topics without limitations in an effort to spread awareness to the masses. Welcome to the program, Tyler.
Thanks for having me, Margie. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm glad you could join me this evening. I was a guest on your show, and I appreciate that. You do have a great show, and Aaron and you are both really good hosts. So,
thank you.
What got you interested in, the paranormal in general?
Well, that was like embedded in me, I think, even as a child, like any of the simple stuff like the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghost, it always intrigued me. Anytime I would see something on TV about it, I was just, fascinated, captivated by it. So it was always there, but I didn't focus on it too much. As I got older, I started, when I actually started using my brain a little more, got out of my party days, and I really started exploring some of this stuff. And it was just still an interest. It didn't really become my life's passion and my life's work until things started happening to me. And that happened when I was 24, almost 25, and my mother passed away. And overnight, almost, I became an experiencer. Things started happening to me in the astral realm, ET, abduction related type of stuff. I don't even know what some of it was. It was just the wildest thing. Not all of it was good. Some of it was, it started off negative as almost like attacks that that forced me to change my beliefs surrounding spirituality and what actually is possible, what exists. And it was a blessing in disguise because it sent me down this path that I can't believe that I'm here, but I love being a part of this movement. I think it's the greatest time to be alive, as crazy as things are. Some amazing things are happening on this planet right now, and I love being in the midst of all of it.
Well, there's certainly a lot going on right now, that's for sure. And there have been a lot of announcements and press releases as of late coming from the government. What do you think about what seems to be disclosure going on at a rapid pace?
That's a good question. I don't know who got the order to say, okay, go ahead and start reporting on UFOs as something real. Stop laughing at them. Whoever made that decision, I don't know who or why it happened, but it's apparent that they're not ridiculing it anymore. I mean, they're talking about motherships on the mainstream media now, something I would have never imagined. Even star seeds. They did a segment on star seeds. And the only reason they would do that, I think, is because they can't ignore it anymore. Like this starseed phenomenon, I guess you could call it, it's a reality. And so many, they said like 400 million people or something around the world think that they're starseeds. And I would imagine that the controllers, that the government is actually threatened by that. So they felt like they had to get ahead of the game and do a little hit piece on starseeds because this awakening is real. And we're not going to get disclosure that we want. The disclosure that we want from the mainstream media, they're going to give us their soft, rolled out, limited hangout disclosure. I think the true disclosure comes from us, people like you and me. When we share our stories, it resonates. The mainstream media would never interview somebody like you and ask you about UFOs. They're,
Yeah.
they want the watered down
Yeah.
version that they think the public could handle. Why it's being accelerated right now, it's anyone's guess. Some people think that they want us, wowed by the UFOs while we have like the train derailments and the environmental health crisis going on. They're flooding the border. There's a lot of political reasons why they think they're pushing it as a distraction. At the same time, I think it's inevitable. No matter what, like there's no turning back now. We just have to finally accept that ETs are among us. And that's bottom line, I think.
Well, many of us have known that for a long, long time. And those of us who are experiencers, like you said, never get interviewed on mainstream media. They do interview scientists and researchers and authors, but you don't see the actual experiencers. And it's hard to prove things like an abduction. And of course, a lot of times there is evidence left behind in the form of, say, injuries to a person or holes in their skin, things like that. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
I have, but before I tell you about that, in case you didn't know, Geico actually has an insurance policy for alien abductees. This is not a theory. I've looked this up. I don't know
I
if you
heard
have.
that today.
Did you? Yes.
Yes.
And if you can prove, if you have physical evidence or with injuries, what I don't know what they deem as proof, but if you can prove that you were abducted, they cover it. They have an insurance policy for it. I think that's incredible. Um, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what they consider evidence as far as that goes, but yeah, I've had some physical stuff. At one time, I woke up and I know I was taken. I know it wasn't good, but I know I had just been somewhere and I was extremely sick, like sick beyond like words. I don't know what happened to me, but I knew something happened. It was like the memory was there, like right on the tip of my tongue type of feeling, but I couldn't grab onto it. And I kept getting progressively worse as the day went on. And I went and saw two different people. I reached out to two different people to figure out what was going on with me. And two different people both told me that I had all of the signs of radiation poisoning.
Oh,
Now, and this came from two separate people. That to me, I mean, just one person to even tell me that was amazing enough, and then another person. So I went and saw my local Reiki energy healer, and she started doing some work on me, and just like kind of she got a vision of me up on this craft and she started crying. She just burst out into tears
mm.
and she was like, I don't even want to tell you what I just saw, what they were doing to you. And she she literally was like in tears and she had to like gather herself and she ended up doing this energy work on me and it finally I finally pulled out of it and it was I started feeling better after that. But that was just one example of like a physical symptom of being taken.
Now,
Uh,
as far as the symptoms of radiation poisoning, did you have a red sunburn-like rash?
if I did, I don't
Okay,
even remember looking at myself that in a mirror. Like I was so sick. Like I don't even
okay,
remember. If I did, I didn't see it. No.
okay.
I
I
just
had a similar
yeah,
experience years ago,
right.
and I found out later, many years later, what those symptoms were, and
Hmm.
it was radiation. Um, what about any physical marks on your body? Have you had any of those?
One time I actually had the memory of being jabbed with a needle, like right here, like where an IV would go. And I actually forgot about it until I woke up and I started moving around. I was like, God, why does my arm hurt? Why does my arm hurt? And then it kept getting worse. I felt exactly like when you have an IV and they pulled out. And I started examining and I had a little mark there. And then as soon as I saw the mark, I got a flashback of um being baited. It wasn't on a ship. I don't know where it was, on a base or whatever. And this man, I was like trying to get out of this facility, and this man scooped me up over his shoulder. He jabbed me in the arm with a needle and scooped me up over his shoulder. And I just had this memory. I woke up with this mark, and I could barely bend my arm, but right where I had the memory of that needle going in, that's where I had the mark. And
Wow.
I can't explain what happened. I don't know what happened. It doesn't even make logical sense. But that's another example.
When you've had these experiences, have you ever uh, awakened in the morning, but just before you wake up, you hear voices talking to you, or some kind of like teaching or training
Yeah,
going on?
100%. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
One time, one of my early experiences, I believe a visitor from Inner Earth phased into my basement. A couple years later, I woke up exactly like you were describing, in mid conversation. Well, it was more or less me hearing her talk, but like almost like my higher self was having a conversation with her. And at that, I was barely enough in that awakening state to where I was able to almost telepathically ask if her name's Corse, because she told me that the first time. I was like,
Hmm.
"Is this Corse?" And she said yes. And then it all faded away, and I woke up. And I was like, "No, you just want it to come back, but
Yeah.
it's so quick." And another time, I woke up, and there was a clear voice in my head that said, "Remember this number, 19720." And I immediately woke up and I typed it in my phone. I texted Aaron the number. He's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Don't. I'll tell you later." uh, so I don't know what it is. I don't know what that number means. I thought maybe it was a date. I really don't know what it is. I had someone tell me it was my clone ID number, like like if I'm a clone or something,
Oh,
but couldn't tell you, to be honest.
that's kind of bizarre. And there are some things that I remember. Same thing. Have you ever seen anything like symbols that you didn't understand?
Yes, I would. There was a phase. It was described to me through a session I had one time, that I was remembering too much, and they had to like dial me back a little bit because I would
Oh,
have started going crazy. But there was a series, like almost a whole year actually, of just me having like recall every night. Every morning I would wake up and or even experience it in real time. But what commonly happened during that time was, I call it light language symbols. It was almost like they were being uploaded into me, and I would just see them like entering my consciousness, like pages and pages and pages of them. And I would even get visions of like cities, or cities, I guess, on other planets, I guess you could say, with all this signage that was in different languages. And I couldn't even, there's no reference point here for the symbols I was seeing. So I would wake up and try to remember them, but they were so foreign. I really couldn't recreate them. But that happened over and over and over for like the course of a year. And it hasn't really happened since then, for maybe occasionally, but not like it was. But
have
yeah, I've
you
seen those symbols.
have you ever seen any of those symbols on anything on Earth?
The closest thing, I didn't know what they were at first until somebody showed me light language symbols.
Mhm.
That's the closest thing that I could say they look like. But for all I know, it could have been a different language. Like I've never seen an exact match. I've just seen similar stuff. So maybe what people consider light language, maybe it was that. Maybe it was something entirely different. I don't know.
Do you ever recall having been taken to another planet in during these visits or abductions?
Um, that's not really. Maybe I've had some weird dream that was so vivid that felt like another planet, but the actual like tangible abductions and stuff that I remember, That was one time. I could tell the story if you'd like, but one time, I'm pretty sure they took my consciousness and I woke up on a ship, and the whole standard laying on the table, little grays next to me. That happened. I'll just tell you that story.
Yeah.
So that happened right around the same time that every night I was getting those like light language downloads, I guess you can call them, and a bunch of other strange things would happen. Like I would wake up and there would be like a holographic overlay in my bedroom of like the jungle. It was almost like they were in like another timeline or another dimension. My bedroom was a jungle, and I could see both simultaneously, and that would happen a few times. And one night, anytime something would happen, it seems like they would wake me up to allow me to remember. This didn't happen like while I was sleeping. So I woke up. I was woken up by this gray ET. Just like the holographic overlay. This time it was a holographic head, a hologram of an ET, a gray ET hovering above my bed, staring at me. And you're kind of frozen in fear when you see something like that. And he just telepathically told me, close your eyes, even though I just woke up and opened my eyes. He said, close your eyes. As soon as I did, my consciousness, it's like my eyes opened up somewhere else when I closed my eyes. And I was laying on this ship. I think it was a ship. It was like a dome-shaped room. The lights were so bright, I really couldn't make out any details of the room. There was 3 little gray, they weren't the typical grays at all. They remind me of the grays that they depict in the movie Fire in the Sky when he's on the ship, Travis Walton. They kind of reminded me of that. But again, they were almost like silhouettes because the light was behind them. And they had their 3 little fingers and they were just scanning my body, almost like they were doing energy work on me. I was asking them all these questions telepathically, because for some reason, automatically, you can just speak telepathy when you're with these beings. So I was like, where am I? Who are you? What are you guys doing to me? Just rapid firing questions and just radio silence back. They were just busy working. And meanwhile, my physical body in bed is vibrating so intensely, like so intensely, it feels like I'm plugged into like some low voltage current or something. And while they're doing this, I'm about ready to pee myself. Like I can't hold it anymore because the vibration is so intense. And I tell them, I was like, guys, I don't know what you're doing, but I have got to pee. And they broke the connection. And I jumped out of bed to go to the bathroom. But the entire time, the top of my head, my crown was tingling, almost like I was connected to something. It was so intense. Like it felt like I was plugged in. And I used the bathroom. When I came back into my room, I noticed one thing. My dog was sedated. Like she was out, like heavy breathing. So she would, like, anytime I would get up, she'd get up, she was out, like if she was inoculated or something. So I laid back down, not expecting anything to happen. As soon as I laid down and closed my eyes again, boom, I was pulled right back to that table and they were still working on me. And then in comes this taller, I call it insectoid hybrid. From my right, he walks into this room, which is a dome shape. So the door is kind of like, it's this rounded door. He walks in and they move away and he gets right up close to me like a doctor would with a light in your eye. And he leans in and he looks in one eye, then the other. He's going side to side, back and forth, looking like he's like looking into my soul through my eyes, it felt like. And he kind of scans my body up and down and gives me this once over. Then he looks down to the little guys and to his left and to his right, and he gives them this nod of approval. And he walks away and the experience ended. And I was there laying in my bed and it was over. And I don't know what they were doing I don't know what they were doing to me to this day. I do have some ideas, though, that I later learned through sessions that I can get into if you'd like.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you if you ever had a regression in order to see what was going on. It sounds like, and then I want to ask you, do you think that was you were physically there or that your astral body was taken instead?
That was my astral body or my consciousness for sure. I know my physical body was in bed. That's how I knew I had to pee, and get up and go. So the next day or the day after, I think it was right after the next day, I actually had a Reiki session scheduled already. And I go in, she does a session, and afterwards she tells me, she's like, I saw the weirdest thing. I didn't tell her about any of this. She's like, I was on a ship and I saw you on the ship and you were laying on a table and there was these little guys working on you. And she's like, we were in space. I knew we were in space because I could see out one of the windows and I saw stars and we were, on a ship. And I asked them what they were doing to you. And they said that they were infusing crystal into the base of my spine. And they explained to her that we're all going from carbon-based to crystalline beings. So they're taking people individually all over the planet and infusing crystal into their spine, like energetically. I don't know if it's actual crystal that would show up on an X-ray, but somehow this crystalline energy, infusing it into my spine. So the physical body could adapt to the energies, the frequencies that we're moving into.
Yeah, no doubt in one of the light bodies. Probably the astral body would be my guess.
Yeah.
I did have a question in chat I wanted to have you address. Carl says, what do you mean by higher self?
That's something I had to explore for years. I didn't know what it meant either. But I feel like there's a higher version of us. It's like a higher consciousness almost. It is explained like there's 12 chakras. We have our chakra system, and then above us is like those chakras are part of us still. And I think that like the highest chakra would be our highest self, our higher self that like knows, like remembers everything. It doesn't have amnesia. So you can meditate and tap into that version of yourself to get information about your mission, I guess, if that makes any sense.
That's a very good explanation. I like that. So what do you think the agenda is of all of the ETs? There's a lot of ETs. What do you think their agenda is for you?
That's the $1 million question, right? I don't know. So there's a number of things. I feel like once we started this podcast and exposing the truth and exposing certain things, I was receiving a lot of negative experiences and attacks and almost like warnings, like they didn't want me to talk about something. We did this show called Reptilians Among Us, and like the night before I had this like experience with these reptilians and they were like threatening me. And so I think some of the experiences are them trying to like silence me. But at the same time, I feel like if we are all star seeds, we do have ET DNA. We came here, we incarnated on this planet to beat the system from the inside out. I feel like we couldn't just show up in the skies and, kill everybody in some space battle. So we had to incarnate and do it from the inside out. And I feel like there's a lot of star seeds from different star systems and planets that are here right now that are being activated. They're being turned on. Dormant DNA is coming to life, and people are remembering who they actually are. And I feel like some of the people who are here helping, some of these people in the case working on my spine, I think they're helping us through that ascension process. I think they want to see us succeed. At the same time, there's groups out there that don't want us to do that because they're probably working with the shadow government and they're ones who are controlling us and mind controlling everybody, and they want to keep us dumbed down. But there's a group of us who are breaking free from that. So I think they're helping with that.
All right. Interesting stuff. We're going to take a short break here and we'll be right back after these messages. My book, The Kansas City UFO Flaps, covers cases that have occurred in Kansas City over the years. Kansas City has long been a UFO hotspot since before the year 1900. I cover many of these cases, starting with the airships in 1897. I cover a lot of cases and speak with actual witnesses. You'll see photos of UFOs and find out why this may be happening in Kansas City. And what is creating portals that could create interdimensional openings. Read about the events that we've held in Kansas City to discuss this and more. Visit unxmedia.com for more information. The book is available at Amazon. Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-fired heating and cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com. And we're back. I'm Margie Kay, and this is UNX News. I have my guest this evening is Tyler Kiwala, and we've been talking about his personal experiences, which are amazing. And I've got to ask the question, what made you decide to do your own podcast?
First of all, now I want a wood-fired pizza because of that commercial. So it worked.
Yes.
What made me want to start? So I was having all these experiences, right? And I found this little community online. I found a conference. I didn't even know they did conferences. I was so in the dark about this stuff.
Oh, wow.
And this was in 2017, I guess. And I found this conference that was held in Colorado. I was like, my soul was being called to go. I had to go. I didn't know. I was just alone here. I didn't have anyone to talk to. So I went to this conference. I was totally just blown away, mind blown. It was the most life-changing weekend of my life up until that point. I met so many people, like-minded people, and I just knew that's where I belonged. I didn't know how or what it was going to look like, but I knew I was going to be doing something along these lines for the rest of my life, like being part of this movement. So I met Aaron at that conference, and literally 2 weeks later, we both realized that we were from St. Louis, but we had to go meet at a conference in Colorado. So about 2 weeks later, we met up for lunch, and Aaron was just like, "Hey, you want to start a podcast?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" I'm just thinking, yeah, nobody's going to watch anyway, but why not? Let's do it. Let's talk about stuff. And right about 2 weeks after that, we did our first episode, which was basically a phone call with my dad. And 4 years later, here we are now, and we're hosting our second conference. It's become so much more than just a podcast. It's just become this beautiful thing I'm so grateful to be a part of. But it was ultimately just going to a conference and being around those like-minded people. I just knew I wanted to be a part of it and contribute, and here we are.
So that says something about synchronicities and no coincidences, and how I believe that everything happens for a reason at a certain time, and when you're ready for it, it's go time.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about your conference here real quick, if you would. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is the second one. Like I said, we did one last year, early May, at the same location in Grafton, Illinois. It was the first time I ever attempted anything like this. We had an amazing turnout. It exceeded my own expectations. You know, you can't, you can only plan the conference, but you can't plan the experience. And it was a beautiful experience. People walked away from it saying they had the best time of their life, just like kind of like I did for my first conference. So I was thrilled. prior to the conference, I was extremely stressed, and I was telling myself, I'm never going to do this again because it was a lot to take on. I didn't know what I was getting into. But this time around, I have a much better idea of what I'm doing now and what to expect. So we're doing another one. And last year was strictly surrounding the secret space program. This year, we're having a number of presenters, including yourself. It's going to be more all encompassing as far as, well, here we go. Right on the screen, UFO disclosure, ET contact, advanced technology, secret space programs, remote viewing, breakaway civilizations, DNA activations, Sasquatch, Hollow Earth, time travel, clones. I mean, you name it. We're covering everything, even spirituality, healing modalities. It's going to be amazing. I'm excited. We have a great lineup of speakers. It's a 4-day event. I know it's long, but believe me, it flies by. And Grafton, that Pierre Marquette Lodge, is a place where you would want to go vacation anyway, even if there wasn't a conference. It's a beautiful getaway. So
it looks like a beautiful place.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to do a skywatch every night, correct?
Weather pending. Last year we got a lot of rain, but we did bonfires under the trees instead, or hung out inside. But yeah, we did some sky watches last year. People saw stuff. Hopefully we have a lot clearer skies this time, but that's the plan. Once we're done every night, we're going to be out there seeing what we can call in and or see, witness. There's also a lot of people who connect with Sasquatch out there. Apparently there's a family in the area. A lot of people last year were connecting with them. So people might have, even on the site, they have little signs about like Sasquatch, and they have like this Sasquatch statue and stuff like that. So like there's a little hot spot there. So
I'll definitely be trying to do some connecting there with the Sasquatch family. That's awesome. Speaking of, have you ever had a Sasquatch sighting?
Not a sighting, but I've had an experience out at East Eddy Ranch up in Washington, Trout Lake, Washington. James Gilliland, his ranch. If you've never been out there, it's like a area where the veil is extremely thin, and all the elementals, anything paranormal, UFO related, you see it. It happens. Life-changing experiences out there. The very first time I went out there, I was with my girlfriend at the time. We were tent camping, and I woke up in the morning to what was the loudest vocalization, not a human, like a roar, but I mean like a yell, like it was like from the chest, It woke me up out of my sleep. Every hair on my body stood up. And I was like, what the hell was that? And my girlfriend next to me, she didn't hear anything, which was the strangest thing.
Yeah.
So then the next night, we're going to sleep. It's almost like 1 or 2 in the morning, and we hear this whack on the tree right next to our tent. I mean, this loud, like the tree knock,
Oh my.
It was so loud. We both sat up and we looked at each other like, what the hell was that? Right after that, we heard 3 footsteps, like thuds. Right outside our tent, we heard a and I'm unzipping the tent. She's like, what are you doing? She's freaking out. She's like, don't go out there. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I have to see what that was. Now out there, the ground they don't get much rain, and the ground is so hard to even get a print out there is near impossible. But there was a big stick laying outside of our tent next to that tree, this big branch that was not there before.
Wow.
And yeah, so
just letting you know that he's there.
And then the next year when I came back for a conference there, I was standing at the doorway of the conference hall, just listening to the presenter, and I felt it felt like somebody poked their finger in the back of my neck, and Aaron was standing next to me, but it wasn't him, because he was here. It just I thought somebody was behind me, but it wasn't. It felt like, and I thought, well, maybe I had a muscle twitch, and I just ignored it. So then I'm watching, and then I felt this huge tap, like this gigantic finger, like on my shoulder, like heavy, just like a double tap. And I turned, and definitely nobody was there because Aaron had moved. So something I couldn't see was like messing with me, right? That night, I decided to like stay up. I just separated from the crowd. I went out into the field on the other side of Well, I hadn't crossed the fence yet. I was just out in the field, just trying to just have an experience, right? Communicate. One of my friends sent me a text. He's like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm out here." He's like, "Oh, we're coming." He was with a friend of his. So they came out and met me. And we had heard from James that like on the other side of this fence is this vortex where they come in and out of a lot, the Sasquatch. So we wanted to go over there, but we knew not to go without asking permission. So we kind of asked for permission. We did this little ceremony, I guess you could say. And no sooner than we did that, we all saw this craft like go by in the sky. And we just took it as like a nod, like, okay, come through. So we're walking through this tall like wheatgrass, about chest high, maybe cattails and all that stuff. And we're around the vortex area. It's like this cluster of trees. And I feel an entire hand on my upper back this time. And I turn around. The girl screams, who's there. And my friend, he just happened to be filming at the time of the when it happened. And he had the night vision, the light on his camera. So I just wrote it off like I didn't know what it was because we didn't see anything. We immediately played back the footage he took, and what surprised me was we heard footsteps on film that we didn't hear audibly in real time. So we were all three standing stationary when this happened. And you can literally hear on the video, because it's super dry grass, you hear crunch, crunch, crunch. And then this orb passes by my upper back right where I felt the hand. And that's where I turn around. So you hear crunch, crunch, crunch. And I turn around and this orb flies by. She screams. You can't see anything, but we heard the footsteps that none of us heard in the actual experience. But for some reason, the film picked up that audio.
Wow, that was an interdimensional experience. And wow, that's amazing. There aren't too many people that have had something like that happen to them.
And I'll note that right after that, we all smelled this smell. It was actually a beautiful smell that none of us, we were literally like on our hands and knees trying to figure out where this smell was coming from. We couldn't figure out what it smelled like. It was just this beautiful scent. Really? And then we all three saw this red orb up in the trees. The next day we talked to the ranch owner, and he explained, he said, if they don't want you around, they excrete that nasty smell. And that's like their warning to get away. But if you're accepted, if they don't mind you there, they'll give you the pleasant smell. And that's how you know that you're welcome. So that's the explanation we got for that.
That is super awesome. What an experience. Have you seen or had experiences with other types of cryptids?
Well, I told you on our show when we had you on, I think I saw the fairy that you remote viewed and said, yeah, it was a fairy. So that would be one. But that's more of an elemental. I haven't, so many experiences have happened, but no. But
well, let's go back to the fairy for a minute.
Okay.
Tell us that story. How did you notice it?
I was just outside in my front yard, and I noticed, this is something I've never saw before. I saw what looked like an insect chasing a bird flying around in my front yard. And I'm like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, I've never seen a bug chasing a bird. And it was almost like it was playing with it. And I even had the thought, like, wonder if that's a fairy. Like, I couldn't tell because it was just looked like a little insect. There's no way to verify it. So later that day, I was around back doing some yard work, and I had these like yellow flowers that just randomly started growing next to my air conditioning unit. And I was just back there looking at them, messing around with something. And this bug, I guess it was a bug, but it flew right past me, like right past my head. But it made this little noise that I've never heard an insect make, like this little tweet, like I don't know what it was. And it wasn't the noise of an insect. And I thought, was that a fairy? Like I couldn't see it. It was so fast, and it flew past me, and I just had to sit there and wonder. I've always just wondered, was that a fairy? And whenever you said you looked into it, whenever I was telling you that story, and you said, yeah, I was. So that's one experience, definitely.
Do other people in your family have these experiences?
My dad does, yeah. And his mom, turns out she was an experiencer, is an experiencer. My grandma, but she didn't share any of her stories until just a couple of years ago. A lot of hers are more paranormal, but they're pretty profound when she tells them. We're like, Grandma, why have you never told anybody? She's like, I was afraid to talk about it, you know? But it
Yeah.
does run in the family for sure. And
So
I
do
wanted to
you,
mention really quick too. People have seen up at East Eddy Ranch. I've never seen it, but there have been numerous sightings of a pterodactyl up there.
oh,
So
oh, I'm very interested in that. I study the winged creatures.
yeah, so
Um,
there was even a group sighting. The entire Skywatch field saw one fly over them, and there's a couple individuals who've had like personal experiences, and they've all told their stories. But it's a common theme out there. The pterodactyls. I don't know if they're coming from inner Earth, if they're just coming popping in. The veil's so thin through portals, different dimensions. Who knows? But that is something that is common out there.
Very interesting. That the yeah, there are a lot of pterodactyl sightings as of late. I will say that the past few years. Uh, so that what the heck that is, I don't know, but nobody's ever that I know of gotten a body of one. Now there may be in the 1800s there might have been a
Hmm.
case, but other than that, nothing modern. So that leads me to believe more interdimensional. Let's go back to your family for just a minute. Did any of your family members talk about ETs or being on craft?
My dad he didn't tell me until we started going through our awakening together. When he was a kid, he had this what he thought was a recurring dream, but he now realizes it wasn't. He would be taken onto this craft, and he was fed this goop. Like he would have this goop put into his mouth. And if you've seen Fire in the Sky,
Oh gosh.
they put that goop into his mouth in that movie,
Yeah.
and he just said he would that would happen constantly. Like he always had that recurring dream. Um, so that was like as a child, he definitely thinks that he was being taken on a craft. As far as anyone else, no, that's the only occasion. Like now, he does have some experiences. I don't think he's ever had memory of being on a craft, though.
Yeah, I found that this type of thing does run in families and has something to do with the DNA. Also, they talk about blood type, RH negative being the major one. Do you know what your blood type is?
I don't, and last time I was having blood work done, I asked, and they said, "Oh, that'll be an extra fee because we have to send it to a different lab to have that done." And at the time, I wasn't going to pay for it. And I actually don't know what my blood type is. So
Wow. I think they type you when you're born, so it might be on your birth certificate, but
it's not. I checked. Yeah.
yeah, and then there are always exceptions to the rule. Mine is A positive, and I'm an experiencer, so go figure
E
what that is.
Right, right. There seems to be like a popular, more attractive bloodline, but it seems anymore anyone isn't. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
if you're an experiencer, they target you for different reasons besides your blood. You know.
Yeah. Now, do you do field investigations?
Um, I have, yeah, not to the extent that you guys do, but um, we've gone out, especially up in the Washington area, out in the middle of the night, and we've tried to do our own investigations and stuff, but nothing professional. It's just more like a group of friends going out and seeing what we can see or call in or whatever. But
Okay.
that's the
Okay.
extent of it.
What do you think is coming down the pike? Uh, you know, talking about all of these disclosure press releases and articles, and everybody. The hot topic buzzword right now is UFO.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Or UAP. They've rebranded it
Oh
now.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
UAP.
well, like I said earlier, I think it's a reality. It's inevitable that we're going to have to realize that we are heading towards a Star Trek type of civilization on this planet. I think that the shadow government, the deep black programs, I think they're already dealing with this technology. They're already setting up breakaway civilizations on other planets and stars and moons. I believe that there is a secret space program already in operation. I just think it's all being, covered up by the aerospace industry and all the organizations and agencies, blah, blah, blah. But in the public eye, I think they know that they can't hide it anymore. Things are surfacing. You can't keep a lid on it forever. You just can't. Like the universal law will not allow that to happen. So I think right now we have to face the reality that, like I said earlier, ETs are among us, and they're going to start showing up in the skies, and there's nothing the government can do about it anymore besides tell us. But they're going to give us their version of it. But I think that they have to tell us, because there's going to be things happening that no one can ignore and no one can unsee. I feel like it's already happening. UFO sightings around the world globally are off the charts, and they're not just like one individual seeing it or having an experience.
Yeah.
You're getting a bunch of people in the city all filming it from 100 different cameras. There's things happening. Like it's time. It's time to know
Yes.
the truth.
Yeah, and daytime sightings too.
Yeah.
The UFOs are not out there just at night. They're there during the day as well. So
I saw one up at Washington during the day fly into the mountain.
really,
Yeah, there's a mountain base there. They have footage of UFOs flying in and out of it, a door opening and closing. But we saw one during the day. There was a presentation going on at the conference. Everybody was in the hall. Me and two other people were outside. We just didn't want to watch that presenter. And we were looking at the mountain, and I saw this thing going back. It went back and forth. It was a cigar shaped black ship, and it was just going back and forth, back and forth. And
wow.
my friend said, he's like, dude, you see that? And none of us could get it on our phone. It just wouldn't show up. It was the craziest thing. And he's like, it almost looks like they're waiting for clearance to go into the mountain. And I said, that's exactly what it looks like. And this thing was going back and forth. And then finally it just went and literally just like disappeared into the mountain, never came from out the other side. So that was broad daylight.
Wow, that is incredible. How long do you think ETs have been here?
Since as long as the planet's been here. I really do feel like, there's been multiple civilizations before modern man. There's evidence of it all over the world. Actually, these ancient cultures, structures, megaliths, they're not as, we were talking about this before off camera. They're not as old. They're way older than they're telling us they are.
Okay. Melody says, as a phlebotomist, I know the best way is to donate blood unless you can get a doctor to specifically order it. So
Oh,
there
really?
you go. Go donate some blood. You'll find out your blood type. That's way cool. Thank you for that, Melody. Appreciate that. The conference coming up, you listed a lot of different subjects. And
Right.
in fact, each one of those could have been a conference in their own. Why did you do that?
We just want, like last year we did one subject and that was it. And it was amazing, but I just wanted to cover everything. So each speaker specializes in something different, and in their expertise and their experiences. So I just wanted to give the audience a taste of everything, because it all goes hand in hand. It's all related. As much as it doesn't seem like it is, it all is. And already I'm seeing the synchronicities align. I think at the end of the conference, it's going to be like this one well bundled package. Whoever gets the live stream replay or who wants to rewatch the conference, I think there's going to be like this underlying message that's just going to come through everybody, if that makes any sense. I feel like, and then we're doing the panel at the end where all the presenters are going to get up on stage and audience is going to ask questions. So it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about it.
So do you believe that under the umbrella of paranormal, all of these things fit? and that UFOs are also related to paranormal?
Yes, I think so. I think not every single case. I think sometimes a ghost is a ghost and a UFO is a UFO, but I think we're talking about different levels of technology, different advanced races, different species who all have their own technologies and modalities of travel, their own ways of cloaking, their own ways of hiding themselves, traveling interdimensionally. Some of them might just be advanced enough to have like some sort of anti-gravitics, but they can't create wormholes yet. I don't know. So I think all the above. I definitely think they're all related, but I don't think like maybe like a extremely advanced group can appear as a ghost and do all of it, But I feel like there's a separation on some level, but in essence, it's all the same.
Why do you think it is that some people experience paranormal events, ghostly events in their house, and they see ETs and they see Sasquatch, and then the next door neighbor sees nothing?
Right, like you. It's I don't know actually. I feel like for one, you have to believe it. You have to be open to it to have the experience. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's all vibration, right? And a skeptic,
Mhm.
somebody who's extremely skeptical, who doesn't believe in it, who's drinking the Kool-Aid, I guess you could say, they're probably existing in a lower vibration. So even if they're looking for like hard evidence that doesn't actually exist, and because they're looking for something that doesn't exist, they're not going to see what they want to see. They have to be open to the possibility that anything can happen, that they can interact with anything, experience anything, just be completely open-minded on all levels. And as crazy as it sounds, and not care what they think, not care what people think of them, right?
Mhm.
Because you limit yourself. Your thoughts, your thoughts sometimes can be your own ball and chain, and you could, your own
Yep.
prison. You can be imprisoned by your thoughts. So, and your beliefs. So, if you
And
believe
no
in
fear.
right, exactly, and
You
no
can't have fear or you won't have the experience.
right. So, I think on that level, some people who are open to it are going to see things, and then I also think other people are, each person has their own specific mission here on this planet, and maybe their mission requires them to have all these experiences because maybe they're supposed to disclose that stuff and blow the whistle on it or share the information. And it's more impactful if it comes from that individual because of their energy signature, whatever the case is. I feel like certain people are chosen because of who they are before they ever come here. um,
Mhm.
at a soul level, you don't know who you really are, but I feel like some people are, it just their mission requires them to have experiences, and other people their mission doesn't. And sometimes based on your personality, Eric Von Daniken, if you know who he is,
Yeah.
he explained one time in an interview that he wanted, his friend was having these amazing experiences being taken on a craft. He was coming back and telling Eric all about it, and he's like, "Tell them I want to see them. I want to see the craft, blah blah blah." And he's like, so his friend like went on the craft and asked if Eric could see them, and he came back and he told him no. He said because if they showed up, you would become so obsessed with that encounter, you would abandon your mission. You would stop writing books. You would become obsessed with it because of your personality. So
Oh,
they're not going to show you because it's actually detrimental to what you're here to do. So you're not going to get the experience, unfortunately, but it exists. So it doesn't
maybe
matter if
next
you see
time
it or not.
around.
Right.
Okay, real quick, because we're running out of time in about a minute. Can you talk about the mantis beans? Explain what they are, if you can.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I don't know actually what they are, who they are. I've heard that some people say, "Oh, they're completely negative, stay away," and then other people have these beautiful experiences with them. I've heard Area 51 whistleblowers and government military whistleblowers say that they've encountered them in underground bases. So
Mhm.
there might be an aspect of the mantis being that is working with our military and our shadow governments. And what that looks like, I don't know, but I feel like um they have a lot to offer as far as like they can do things that only our technology can do that they can do naturally. As far as I don't know how to explain that better, but I do know the City
Yeah.
Museum in St. Louis, Missouri, if you've ever been there, has a giant praying mantis on the roof of it, and
Oh,
the whole museum itself is surrounded by reptilian statues and serpents. And there's a very
cool.
dark, like satanic energy there. Unfortunately, I did a whole video on this years ago. Um, so
How can we see that video?
it's on my personal YouTube channel under my name, Tyler Kiwala.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've gotten a
Excellent.
lot of it gets a lot of views because anyone who types in the City Museum, it comes up, and I get people to think I'm absolutely nuts. And then some people are like, wow, I've never noticed that before. It's great. So I don't
Okay.
know who the mantis beings are or what their role is, but I definitely believe they exist.
All right. Well, we are unfortunately out of time for this evening. Thank you so much for coming on, Tyler. I appreciate it. And if you want to go to the Journey to Truth conference, May 22nd to the 25th, go to journeytotruthcon.com, and X listeners use promo code X333 and you'll get a discount. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you here again next week.